You wake up every single morning with 24 hours in your hands. That's 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. And in all that time, in all those moments, you have a choice about what you're going to build with it. Most people, and I mean most, will scroll through their phones for hours. They'll complain about what's not working. They'll wait for things to get better on their own. They'll run the same routine they ran yesterday, expecting tomorrow to look different. But it won't, because nothing changes until you do. And that's the hard truth nobody wants to hear. You don't need more time. You don't need better circumstances. You need to take just 1 hour out of your day and use it with full intention, not half-hearted effort, distracted energy, but real, focused, committed action. 1 hour where you're not checking notifications. 1 hour where you're not scrolling past other people's lives. 1 hour where you stop reacting to the world and start building your own. That's it. That's all it takes to start turning your life around. Not someday when things calm down. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Today. With what you have. And if you can commit to that, if you can give yourself that 1 hour every single day, you will not recognize the person you become 6 months from now, because transformation doesn't happen in the big moments. It happens in the quiet ones, the ones where nobody's watching, the ones where you choose growth over comfort, the ones where you decide that your future is worth more than your temporary feelings. Think about it. 1 hour is less than 5% of your entire day. You give more time than that to things that don't matter. You spend more time than that being distracted, entertained, numb. But you won't give 1 hour to yourself. And that's the reason you're stuck. Not because you're not smart enough. Not because you don't have what it takes. But because you haven't made yourself the priority. Your time reflects your values. It shows what you actually care about. And if you're not carving out time to grow, to learn, to build, improve, then you're telling yourself that you're not worth it. But you are. You're worth every second of effort. You're worth the discipline. You're worth the discomfort. And once you start acting like it, everything shifts. You start thinking differently. You start moving differently. You start showing up differently. Because when you give yourself that 1 hour every day, you're not just working on a skill or a goal. You're working on your identity. You're becoming someone who keeps promises. Someone who doesn't quit when it gets hard. Who values their future more than their comfort. That's the kind of person who wins. Not because they're lucky, because they're consistent. And here's what nobody tells you. You already have the time. You're just giving it away to things that don't serve you. You're giving it to distraction, to scrolling, to pointless conversations, to worry, to doing the same things that keep you stuck. But imagine if you took all that wasted energy and focused it on one thing. One area of your life that actually matters. One skill you want to build. One problem you want to solve. One dream you want to chase. What would happen? You'd grow. You'd improve. You'd start seeing results. And those results would fuel you. They'd give you confidence. They'd remind you that you're capable of more than you've been settling for. That's what 1 hour a day does. It proves to you that you're not broken. You're not stuck. You're just not focused. And the moment you get focused, the moment you stop scattering your energy in 100 different directions, you become unstoppable. You start making real progress. Not the kind that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Real progress. The kind that changes how you see yourself. The kind that makes you proud when you're alone. The kind that lasts. So stop waiting. Stop saying you'll start tomorrow. Telling yourself you're too busy. You're not too busy. You're just not prioritizing what matters. And if you don't make time for growth now, you'll be forced to make time for regret later. Life doesn't pause. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It keeps moving, and you can either move with it or get left behind. That's not a threat. That's reality. The world rewards action. It rewards people who show up. It rewards those who stop talking about change and actually do something about it. And that something doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be real. It has to be consistent. It has to be intentional. 1 hour a day. That's your starting point. Not a vague plan, not a someday goal, a daily commitment, a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. And in that hour, you do the work. You read something that sharpens your mind. You write something that clears your thoughts. You move your body and remind yourself that you're strong. You practice a skill that brings you closer to where you want to be. You sit in silence and get honest about what's working and what's not. Whatever it is, you use that time to build, to grow, to become. Here's the thing. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to show up day after day. Even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's when it counts the most. That's when you're building real discipline. That's when you're proving to yourself that you're not ruled by your emotions. You're ruled by your commitment. And commitment is what separates people who dream from people who do. Anyone can want a better life. Anyone can talk about changing, but only a few will actually sit down and put in the work. Only a few will protect that 1 hour like it's sacred. Only a few will treat their time like it's the most valuable thing they own, because it is. Time is the one thing you can never get back, and every hour you waste is an hour you lose forever. That's why this matters. That's why you can't keep putting it off. You have to start now, when you feel inspired, not when things slow down. Now, with what you have, with where you are. And if you do that, if you commit to just one focused hour every day, your life will change. Not because of magic, because of math. Because small actions repeated daily create massive results over time. 30 hours a month, 360, 5 hours a year, almost 40, 6, 8-hour workdays dedicated to your growth. Imagine what you could build with that. Imagine who you could become. The first thing you need to do is get out of bed when you say you will, not when it feels good. When you planned, because the way you start your morning sets the tone for everything that follows. If your first move is hitting snooze, your first is delay. And delay becomes a pattern. It becomes who you are. But if your first move is action, you start your day with power. You remind yourself that you're in control, that your feelings don't run the show, that you're capable of doing hard things. Confidence carries you through the rest of the day. Most people don't realize how much they're giving away when they stay in bed longer than they should. They think they're just getting a few more minutes of rest. But what they're really doing is training themselves to be weak, teaching their mind that comfort is more important than commitment. And over time, that becomes their default. They start choosing ease over effort in every area of life. And that's why they stay stuck. That's why nothing changes. Because they never learned how to do what's uncomfortable. They never built the muscle of discipline. And without discipline, you can't build anything that lasts. Getting out of bed early isn't about being extreme. It's not about waking up at some ridiculous hour just to prove a point. It's about taking ownership of your time, deciding that the first hour of your day belongs to you, not to your phone, not to other people's demands, to you. And in that hour, you get clear, you move your body, you set your intentions, you remind yourself what you're working toward. You don't jump straight into chaos. You don't start reacting before you've even had a chance to think. You lead your day instead of letting your day lead you. That's the difference. That's what separates people who feel in control from people who feel overwhelmed. And it all starts with one simple decision. Get up when you said you would. Do it even when it's hard. Do it even when your bed feels better than your goals. Because every time you do, you're building strength. You're building trust with yourself. And when you trust yourself, everything else becomes easier. Now, once you're up, once you've claimed your morning, you have to decide where your attention goes. Because your attention is your power, whatever you focus on grows. If you focus on problems, you'll see more problems. If you focus on what's not working, you'll feel stuck. If you focus on what you can control, on what you can build, on what you can improve, you'll start making progress. Real progress. The kind that actually moves your life forward. Most people scatter their attention in 1,000 directions. They check their phone first thing. They scroll through what everyone else is doing. They let the news tell them what to worry about. They react to every notification. And by the time they sit down to do something meaningful, their mind is already exhausted. Their focus is already drained. They've given their best energy to things that don't matter. And then they wonder why they can't concentrate. Why they can't stay motivated, can't make progress. It's because they never protected their attention. They never guarded their focus. They let the world pull them in every direction instead of deciding for themselves what deserves their time. If you want to grow, you have to become intentional about where your mind goes. You have to stop letting every distraction steal your energy. You have to choose what gets your attention before the world chooses for you. That means turning off notifications. That means saying no to things that don't align with your goals. That means being okay with missing out on things that don't matter, because you can't do everything. You can't focus on everything. And if you try, you'll end up doing nothing well. What you need is depth. You need to pick one thing and give it your full attention, not for 5 minutes while you're half distracted, but for a real stretch of time, an hour where you're fully present, fully engaged, fully committed. That's when real work happens. That's when breakthroughs come. Not when you're multitasking, not when you're half in and half out, but when you're all in, when your mind is sharp and your focus is clear. And you build that kind of focus by protecting your attention every single day, by refusing to let your mind drift, bringing it back when it wanders, by training it to stay locked on what matters. And what matters is building something meaningful with your time, not just going through the motions, not just checking boxes. creating something that actually moves your life forward, something that makes you feel proud, something that gives your day purpose. Most people go through life reacting. They wake up and respond to whatever comes at them. They handle whatever fires need to be put out. They do what other people ask them to do. And at the end of the day, they've been busy, but they haven't built anything. They haven't created anything. They haven't moved closer to where they want to be. And that's why life feels empty. That's why they feel stuck, because they're not building, they're just surviving. And survival isn't enough. You weren't made to just survive. You were made to create, to build, to become. And that requires time. It requires effort. It requires sitting down and doing the work even when nobody's watching. Even when there's no applause. Even when it's hard. Separates people who move forward from people who stay stuck. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the willingness to use your time to build something that matters to you. Maybe it's a skill you've been wanting to learn. Maybe it's a project you've been putting off. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's a business idea. Maybe it's a creative pursuit. Whatever it is, it deserves your time. It deserves your energy. It deserves your full effort. And if you give it that, if you commit to working on it every single day, it will grow. It will take shape. It will become real. But only if you stop waiting. Only if you stop making excuses. Only if you sit down and do the work. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to start. And once you start, momentum will follow. You'll begin to see progress. And progress is what keeps you going, not motivation. Progress. Because when you see yourself improving, when you see your work taking shape, you don't need anyone to push you. You push yourself. You want to keep going. You want to see how far you can take it. That's the power of building. It gives you purpose. It gives you direction. It gives you something to wake up for. And that's what most people are missing. They're not lazy. They're not broken. They're just not building anything that matters to them. And the moment they start, everything changes. But building isn't enough on its own. You also have to keep learning. You have to keep growing. You have to keep feeding your mind with things that make you better. Because if you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you stop growing, you start repeating the same patterns, the same mistakes, the same limitations. You get stuck at the level of your last breakthrough. And that's a slow death. That's how people end up in the same place year after year. Not because they're not trying, but because they're not learning. They're not evolving. They're not challenging their thinking. They're running on old information, old beliefs, old habits. And that's why nothing changes. You have to make learning a daily habit, not once in a while. Every day, you have to read something that challenges you, listen to something that expands your perspective. Think about something that makes you uncomfortable, because growth happens outside your comfort zone. It happens when you're exposed to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new approaches to old problems. And that exposure has to be intentional. It has to be consistent, because one book won't change your life. One idea won't transform you, but one idea a day for a year will. That's 365 new tools, 365 new perspectives, 365 opportunities to think better, act better, and become better. And learning isn't just about consuming information, applying it. It's about taking what you learn and using it. If you're not changing your behavior, you're not really learning. You're just collecting information. And information without application is useless. You have to ask yourself after everything you learn, how does this apply to my life? How can I use this today? What can I change because of this? That's when learning becomes powerful. That's when it actually transforms you. Because now it's not just something you know, it's something you live. It's part of how you operate. It's woven into your decisions, your actions, your identity. And that's the kind of learning that lasts. That's the kind that makes you unstoppable. Because you're not just smarter, you're wiser. You're more capable. You're more equipped to handle whatever life throws at you. And that confidence shows. It shows in how you speak, how you move, how you carry yourself. People can tell when someone is growing. They can feel it. And that energy attracts opportunity. It attracts respect. It attracts results. Now, while you're building and learning, you also need to move your body. You need to do something physical every single day, not because you're trying to look a certain way, but because your body holds your energy. It holds your strength. It holds your clarity. And when you don't move, when you stay still for too long, you lose all of that. You start feeling heavy, tired, foggy. And it's not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional. Because your body and your mind are connected. When your body is weak, your mind feels weak. When your body is strong, your mind feels sharp. That's why movement matters. You can't skip it. It's not optional. It's essential. You don't need a gym. You don't need equipment. You just need to move. Walk, stretch, do push-ups, jump, dance, whatever gets your blood flowing, whatever wakes you up, whatever reminds you that you're alive and capable. Do that every day. Make it a non-negotiable part of your routine. Because when you move your body, you shift your state. You release tension. You clear your mind. You generate energy. And that energy carries you through the rest of your day. It makes everything easier. It makes you more focused, more present, more resilient. And here's what most people don't understand. Moving your body isn't just about fitness. It's about discipline. It's about doing something hard when you don't feel like it. It's about pushing through resistance, proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort, that you can do what needs to be done, even when it's not fun. That's the real benefit. That's what transfers to every other area of your life. Because if you can make yourself move when you're tired, you can make yourself work when you're unmotivated. If you can push through a workout, you can push through a difficult conversation. If you can show up for your body, you can show up for your goals. It all connects. It all builds on itself. And the more you move, the stronger you become, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You become someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't give up when things get hard. Someone who keeps going no matter what. And that's the kind of person who wins. That's the kind of person who builds the life they actually want. But while you're doing all of this, while you're building and learning and moving, you also need to slow down sometimes. You need to check in with yourself. You need to create space to reflect, to think, to process. Because if you're constantly moving, constantly doing, constantly reacting, you lose touch with what's actually going on inside you. You lose awareness. And without awareness, you can't grow. You can't make good decisions. You can't course correct. You just keep running in the same direction, hoping it's the right one. Hope isn't a strategy. Awareness is. You have to create time to sit with yourself, to ask the hard questions, to be honest about what's working and what's not, to acknowledge what you're avoiding, what you're afraid of, you're holding on to, that's no longer serving you. These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary, because real growth doesn't come from doing more. It comes from understanding yourself better. It comes from seeing your patterns, your triggers, your blind spots. And once you see them, you can change them. But you can't change what you refuse to look at. Slowing down doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean giving up. It means pausing long enough to make sure you're heading in the right direction. It means checking in with your thoughts, your emotions, your energy. It means asking yourself if you're living in alignment with who you want to be. And if you're not, it means making adjustments. It means getting honest. It means taking responsibility, because nobody else can do this work for you. Nobody else can fix what's broken inside you. Nobody else can clear the confusion. Only you can. And it starts with awareness, with honesty, with the willingness to sit with yourself and face what's real. That's uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. They'd rather stay busy. They'd rather keep moving. They'd rather distract themselves than deal with what they're feeling. But avoidance doesn't make problems go away. It makes them bigger. It makes them heavier. And eventually, they break you. So don't wait for that. Don't wait until you're forced to slow down on your own terms. Do it daily. Create space to breathe, to think, to reflect, and use that space to get clear, to reconnect with your purpose, to remind yourself why you're doing all of this in the first place. And while you're reflecting, while you're getting honest with yourself, you'll probably notice something. There's one problem you keep avoiding, one thing you keep running from, one conversation you keep putting off, one decision you keep dodging, one habit you haven't changed. And deep down, you know it's holding you back. You know it's draining your energy. You know it's keeping you stuck, but you've been pretending it's not that big of a deal. You've been telling yourself you'll handle it later. You've been burying it under distractions and excuses, but it's still there, and it's not going anywhere until you face it. So face it. Stop avoiding. Stop pretending it doesn't matter. It does matter. And the longer you ignore it, the more power it has over you, the more energy it drains, the more it weighs on you. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You just need to decide that today is the day you stop running. Today is the day you deal with it, is the day you take responsibility and do what needs to be done. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation. It's ending something that's been over for a long time. Maybe it's starting something you've been scared to start. Maybe it's admitting you were wrong. Maybe it's forgiving someone. Maybe it's forgiving yourself. Whatever it is, do it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. There's just now. And now is all you have. So use it. Take action. Fix the problem you've been avoiding. Clear the weight you've been carrying. And once you do, once you finally deal with it, you'll feel lighter, clearer. You'll feel free because you're no longer running. You're no longer hiding. You're facing your life head on. But courage is what builds character. Courage is what builds confidence. Courage is what changes everything. Now, as you're doing all of this work, As you're building and learning and moving and reflecting and facing your problems, you need to track it. You need to write it down. You need to measure your progress. Because if you're not tracking, you're guessing. And when you're guessing, you lose control. You lose clarity. You lose momentum. Tracking keeps you honest. It shows you the truth. It shows you where you're actually putting your time, where you're actually making progress, where you're slipping, where you're lying to yourself. And that awareness is everything. Because you can't improve what you don't measure. You can't fix what you don't see. Tracking forces you to see. It forces you to be real. It forces you to take ownership. Ownership is what creates change. Get a notebook. Write down what you do each day. Track your habits. Track your actions, your thoughts. Track your progress. And at the end of each day, review it. Ask yourself, did I do what I said I would? Did I move forward? I waste time. Did I let distractions win? Be honest. Don't sugarcoat it. Just look at the facts and use those facts to make better decisions tomorrow. Tracking isn't about judgment. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about learning, seeing your patterns so you can improve them. And over time, as you track consistently, you'll start to notice things. You'll see when you're most productive. You'll see what drains you. You'll see what fuels you. You'll see where your time actually goes. Knowledge gives you power. It gives you control. It gives you the ability to make changes that actually stick, because now you're not operating on feelings. You're operating on data. You're operating on truth. And truth is what sets you free. Start tracking today. Don't wait. Don't overcomplicate it. Just write down what you did, what worked, what didn't. And do it again tomorrow, day after that, and the day after that. Because consistency is what builds momentum. Consistency is what creates results. Consistency is what separates people who talk from people who do. And that brings us to the final piece. Repetition. You have to repeat the habits that matter. You have to do them over and over and over until they're no longer something you have to think about, until they're just who you are. Because real change doesn't come from one good day. It comes from 100 good days, 1,000 good days. It comes from showing up when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're doubting yourself. It comes from doing the work anyway, from trusting the process even when you can't see the results yet, from believing that small actions repeated daily will eventually create massive change. And they will. But only if you stay with it. Only if you don't quit. Only if you keep going long after the excitement fades. That's where most people fail. They start strong. They do well for a week, maybe 2. And then they fall off. They lose motivation. They get distracted. They convince themselves it's not working. It is working. It's just slow. And slow doesn't feel satisfying. Slow doesn't feel impressive. But slow is what lasts, is what builds real change. So don't give up when it feels slow. Don't quit when you can't see progress yet. Just keep going. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Because every single day you show up, you're building something. You're building discipline. You're building character. You're building the person you're becoming. And that person is worth the wait. That person is worth the effort. Person is worth every uncomfortable moment. Every early morning. Every hard decision. Every moment of doubt. It's all building you, shaping you. It's all preparing you for the life you say you want. So trust it. Trust the process. Trust yourself. And keep going, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, one action at a time. That's how you change your life. That's how you become someone better. Not through big, dramatic moments, through quiet, consistent, relentless effort. Showing up every single day and doing what needs to be done. That's the secret. That's the formula. And it works. Stop waiting. Stop overthinking. Stop making excuses. Just start right now, today, with what you have, with where you are. Give yourself 1 hour. Use it wisely. Use it intentionally. Use it to build the life you actually want. And then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Because that's how transformation happens. One focused hour at a time.